Welcome to the FBS Podcast. In late December of 1776, the American Revolution was, for all practical purposes, on life support.
It really was. The Continental Army had been chased out of New York all across New Jersey. Morale was just completely shattered.
And here's the most critical point, the one that really sets the stage. The enlistments for the vast majority of troops were set to expire on January 1st.
Right. It's a hard deadline. The Army wasn't just losing battles. It was literally dissolving on a calendar constraint. It was an existential project failure unfolding in real time.
We usually hear about Washington's crossing of the Delaware as this, romantic, desperate Hail Mary pass.
Yeah, the famous painting, the heroic gamble.
Exactly. But if you strip away all that romance, what you're left with is one of the most brilliant, high-stakes project management case studies in history.
That's the perfect way to look at it. The core mission was survival, not just winning one battle. The stakes were total, and the resources were almost non-existent.
So let's reframe this whole thing. Our argument today is that Washington didn't succeed by luck, but by consciously designing a massive, complex operation around ironclad constraints and, importantly, strategically placed buffers.
He was basically applying the principles of critical chain project management, or CCPM, to save a revolution, whether he called it that or not.
Okay, so for the professionals listening, the foresters, sawmill owners, loggers who are running complex systems every day, let's start there. What is CCPM in plain language?
Well, CCPM is an application of the theory of constraints. It's all about maximizing the throughput and flow of your entire system.
Not just one part of it.
Exactly. If you run a saw line, your objective isn't to keep the debarker busy 100% of the time. Your objective is to get finished lumber out the door reliably. CCPM shifts the focus from maximizing local efficiency to maximizing system flow.
But wait, conventional wisdom is always run lean, push utilization to 100%, squeeze every drop of efficiency out of every machine. You're saying that might actually be a recipe for system collapse.
It is the failure mode CCPM predicts. I mean, think about it. If you're 100% utilized, you have zero capacity to absorb surprise.
And there's always a surprise.
Always. A critical machine breaks down, the market shifts, a key employee calls in sick. When that happens, your entire schedule just explodes. And that brings us to the idea of the critical chain.
Okay, define that for us, simply.
So most people know the critical path, the longest sequence of dependent tasks. But the critical chain goes further. It's the longest sequence of tasks that accounts for both task dependencies and your resource constraints.
What do you mean by resource constraints?
It's not just the longest road. It's the longest road where you only have one specialty truck that can carry the heaviest load. That truck, or a key supervisor, or a specific feller buncher, that is your binding constraint. It controls the pace of the whole project.
So if you lose an hour on that one truck,
you lose an hour on the entire project, full stop.
And to protect that bottleneck, you need buffers. This is what Washington did, maybe intuitively. What are these CCPM buffers?
There are three main types. First, you've got capacity buffers, which protect the physical resource itself. Basically having more than you think you need.
Redundancy.
Right. Second are resource buffers. This is about making sure your proven, most competent people, your experts, are available for the most critical tasks. And finally, you have project buffers, which are just blocks of time placed strategically to absorb delays and protect the final deadline.
Okay, let's connect this back to Washington. The sources are pretty clear that his operation had all these hallmarks. The single biggest constraint was moving the army, horses, and heavy artillery across an ice-choked river.
In the dark. In a blizzard. It was the absolute single point of failure for the entire mission.
And he buffered it brilliantly. So let's start with the physical constraint, the river crossing. What did he do for a capacity buffer?
He deliberately got his hands on significantly more boats than were ultimately needed to get the troops across that night.
So he knew some would fail.
He planned on it. Some boats are damaged, some crews couldn't handle the ice, but the plan never, ever relied on perfect utilization. If a boat failed, there is excess capacity ready to go. The flow is maintained.
Hold on, though. As a business owner listening to this, I'm thinking, extra boats sitting idle. That sounds like wasted resources.
Yeah.
How do I justify keeping a perfectly good skidder parked just in case the main one breaks? That hits my bottom line today.
And that's the critical trade-off. Local efficiency screams use that skidder 100% of the time. But if that machine is the binding constraint for your entire logging operation, meaning 0 logs move without it, the cost of 2 days of downtime is way, way higher than the cost of having a backup.
So the cost of project failure was total.
It was total. Washington chose project survival over maximizing boat utilization. CCPM is about accepting calculated slack where failure is just not an option.
You're reframing waste as systemic insurance.
That's it, precisely. Now let's look at his people, the resource buffers. Washington protected the critical chain by assigning its most sensitive, high-risk tasks only to subordinates with proven, demonstrated competence.
You're talking about John Glover and Henry Knox.
The A-Team. John Glover and his Marblehead Regiment had already saved the Army once by managing the evacuation from Brooklyn. The Delaware crossing was a huge technical risk. Glover was the single most qualified person on the continent to manage that risk under pressure.
And Henry Knox, the man who famously dragged cannon all the way from Ticonderoga to Boston.
He was put in charge of the artillery. Getting heavy cannon onto slick, icy boats at night is a logistical nightmare. Knox's presence just dramatically reduced the execution risk on that critical task. Washington wasn't gambling on unknown talent. He was deploying tested competence right at the bottleneck.
And the detail that I find fascinating is that before they marched, all the officers synchronized their watches.
From a project control standpoint, that's just essential signal management. When your tasks are tightly coupled and you're operating in the dark with 0 margin for error, coordination mistakes are fatal.
It reduced the noise.
It reduced execution noise across columns that were moving separately. It ensured they would all converge on Trenton as a single, coordinated system. He was mitigating errors before they could become terminal delays.
And the decision to cross at night, that wasn't just for tactical surprise, was it?
No, the darkness itself acted as a kind of schedule protection. It was a form of implicit buffer consumption. It masked minor delays after they landed and allowed them to regroup out of sight. The system was structured to absorb small failures without collapsing.
Extra boats, concentrated talent, and time control. He repeatedly chose robustness over superficial efficiency.
That is the CCPM mindset in action.
Okay, so let's flip this. Let's look at the counter system. The Hessian garrison in Trenton. Why did they fail so quickly?
Because they were trapped in what we call local optima. The Hessian commander was optimizing for the wrong thing.
What was he optimizing for?
The December routine. Reduced patrol fatigue, maximum troop rest, preserving energy for the spring campaign. Every single one of those choices was locally rational. It saves energy, improves comfort, but globally, it created an incredibly brittle system.
And their buffers.
Oh.
They weren't in capacity, they were in beliefs.
Exactly. They put their buffers in assumptions. They believed the frozen river and the awful weather acted as an insurmountable natural barrier. That belief functioned as a kind of psychological buffer.
Which let them relax their guard.
It led to a relaxed, alert posture, almost no contingency planning. Washington's operation didn't just cross a river, it deliberately and completely burned the enemy's assumption buffer.
And once that invisible buffer was gone,
the system had no recovery path. They were running lean in their winter posture. Minimal patrol redundancy, no extra transport ready to go. This is the classic danger CCPM warns about. When that variability spiked, when Washington landed, their highly utilized, efficient system just collapsed.
The decisive asymmetry, then, wasn't about numbers or firepower. It was about where each side placed their reserves.
Real buffers, capacity, competence, time beat, imagined buffers like assumptions and expectations every single time.
So let's bring this 2.5-century-old analysis right into the working land sector today. What does this mean for someone running a mill or a timber sale?
It reinforces the danger of confusing efficiency with robustness. If you're a forester managing a harvest schedule, you often face the binding constraint of weather, right? Mud season.
Of course.
If you optimize only for low operating costs in the fall and you don't build in capacity buffers like alternate haul routes or some reserve inventory, you expose your entire supply chain to catastrophic failure the moment that weather constraint hits hard.
We see that all the time with inventory. A mill runs its log yard super lean, assuming the supply chain will be perfect, and then one key vendor has a breakdown and the entire plant has to shut down.
That is the Hessian mistake. You're trusting the assumption that the market will be consistent instead of building an actual capacity buffer like extra log inventory. You optimized for low working capital, but what you really created was terminal fragility.
What about that resource buffer idea? Putting Glover and Knox on the critical tasks. Where do we see that go wrong in business?
It goes wrong when you assign the most complex job, say, calibrating a new piece of equipment or rolling out a critical safety protocol, to the newest or cheapest employee just because they're available.
So success is identifying that critical task and putting your best person on it, even if it pulls them from something else that seems productive.
Exactly. You pull your top supervisor off a routine task to oversee that one critical bottleneck, simply to reduce the risk of variability. That supervisor is your Henry Knox.
So things like cross-training staff or having multiple people certified for a key task, that's not inefficiency, that's building resource buffers.
Absolutely. It ensures that when your lead forester gets sick, your whole project doesn't grind to a halt. You have a proven resource buffer ready to step in and maintain the flow.
The fundamental takeaway here seems to be that when a system confuses high utilization with robustness, it becomes instantly vulnerable.
And if you're a business owner and you recognize that your lean systems keep breaking when a little variability hits, the question becomes, how do I identify my critical chain and build these buffers without crippling my budget?
Which is where this kind of project flow thinking comes in. And I know this is a core focus of the curriculum at the Forest Business School.
It is, precisely. For those mid-career practitioners, foresters, and business owners who see their operational reliability suffering, programs like the 6-month FBS Essentials program teach you how to actually apply these CCPM methods.
It's not just theory, then.
Not at all. We focus on practical application, how to find your real system bottlenecks, how to place and monitor those 3 types of buffers effectively, and how to apply proven rules of flow to transform your project results in the real world.
It all comes back to a simple truth, then. Washington didn't win at Trenton because he took a desperate gamble.
Not at all.
He won because he designed the system to survive uncertainty by understanding and managing his constraints better than his opponent did.
Sound design and real buffers beat wishful thinking every time.
For more information on critical chain project management and how this kind of thinking can be applied to improve reliability and output in your business, please visit the Forest Business School website. That's www.vtfbs.com.